there's a strength that I have now that I want every woman to have. I
Yeah.
want every woman to know, no matter what her children do, no matter what her husband, no matter
Right.
what her pastor did, no matter
Yeah.
what her friend and the way the friend showed up and betrayed her, whatever other people's choices are,
Right.
there's a strength and an empowerment for you, an unshakable anchor in God's strength that is available to you, that will give you the ability to walk through no matter what other people do, say, or come at you with.
Yeah.
There's a strength there that you can walk and say, well, this is how I'm choosing to show up.
So one thing that is the stumbling block for everyone is yourself. And I think that's really hard to admit. It's hard to realize. Limiting beliefs sound woo-woo and mindset sounds woo-woo. But I will tell you that one of the greatest things that came out of the original course to build the course was meeting my mindset coach. And I have done several rounds with her. I'm currently just jumped in again for a 7-month stint with her.
Yeah.
Called Shift It, because I think it's one thing to have a cheerleader, and my friends are cheerleaders and they're amazing and they love me and love my work and I can probably do no wrong. But she's more, why do you say that?
Our pain is where we get compassion and empathy for other people. Believe who he says about you. Get rid of the shame. And if it is true guilt, then do something about that. Like, God gives us a way to handle and process when we've done something wrong. My goal is to help people to be the healthiest, balanced person that they can be. And to do that, you have to.
Oh my gosh, it's the scale. That stupid scale is on my throne, and I don't want it on there, but it is, because I bowed down to it 10, 15 times a day. I was obsessed with that. I mean, that makes no sense to weigh yourself 10 times a day, but that scale told me my worth. Okay. And so I just remember thinking, I got to be honest with myself. Because I loved him. I loved God. I was learning so much. I was getting into RUF then, and I was learning so much about the Bible. And I thought, Lord, I don't know what to do, because I really want you in the throne, but I don't know how to get this one out. So that was a powerful moment for me.
Fear and faith are like two radio station frequencies, right? They're playing at the same time. And you don't eliminate fear, you just turn up the volume on faith. And you turn down the volume on fear. Listen, both signals are going to be there, but you choose which one you're going to listen to. Isaiah 41:10 says this, "Do not fear, for I am with you." Notice, it doesn't say, hey, there won't be any fear. It says, don't live in it. God is with us in it. This is next level. Right now, here's the truth. You will either be led by fear or you will be led by faith. You will either be led by your fear or you will be led by your faith. But you can't serve both, my friends. You cannot serve fear and you cannot serve faith. Faith isn't ignoring fear. It's just choosing which story you believe. The one that fear tells you or the one that God tells you. It's simple as that. Let me be real. There was a season I let fear make every decision. I stayed quiet when I should have spoken up. I stayed small because it felt safer than being seen. And I passed on opportunities that I knew I wish I had taken. My biggest regrets aren't the times I was too afraid to try it all. I was not playing to lose rather than playing to win. But the moment I chose faith over fear, just that one time, it created a ripple effect. It gave me evidence that I could do this afraid. That courage wasn't about the absence of fear. It's not. Fear never leaves per se. It wasn't that. It was about walking with fear and choosing obedience anyway. I want you to think about Gideon in the Bible. God found him hiding in a wine press, and basically saying, hey, you've got the wrong guy here, God. Like, I think this is just classic fear talk, right? But notice what God didn't do. He didn't remove Gideon's fear. Instead, he asked Gideon to act despite it. So with each small step of obedience, Gideon's fear lost its power. And here's what I need you to understand. The miracle isn't in the absence of fear. The miracle is in the movement despite the fear. So the lesson, I think God rarely removes our fear before we act. The miracle happens in the movement. The miracle happens in the step of faith. The miracle happens when your confidence grows in knowing who you are in Christ, and the Christ in you flows out of you. So here's my challenge to you right now. What's one decision that you've been avoiding because fear is driving in the driver's seat? And what would it look like to do it anyway? Question of who could be impacted if you actually did it, if you actually said yes. But I need you to identify that one thing right now. That thing that makes your heart race when you think about it, that's your roadmap. That's your next step. That's your wind, your bigger view of your car, right? In the driver's seat. But when we let fear ride in the passenger seat, but it doesn't get the wheel. And that's the difference. We can let fear ride in the passenger seat, but it doesn't get the wheel. We can acknowledge it's there, but it doesn't give us directions. It doesn't tell us where to go. It doesn't even drive us to where it thinks we need to go. And don't wait for fear to leave before you move. Like, move anyway. Because on the other side of fear is purpose, is power, is peace. It's the very thing you've been praying for, my friends. Listen, you're not behind. You're not late. And even for my older friends, right? Fear has not disqualified you. The only thing standing between you and the next level is your moment of bold obedience. That's it. And the good news is it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be honest. Has to come from your heart. I want you to think of fear like a shadow. Remember, we said it's like a spotlight, and it produces this shadow. This fear does. And the closer you get to the light, the bigger your shadow becomes. The bigger your calling is. The bigger your fear is, though. And that's not a warning, that's confirmation. Say the thing, make the call, send the email, raise your hand. Fear is present regardless, but you are still in control. And the next chapter of your story, listen, it starts the moment you decide to turn that fear into fuel. Fear is a passenger, not the driver. Fear is the passenger. It's not the driver. You've got to put it in its place, and you get to watch your life transform because of it.
The goal is to point them back to Christ. And the goal is to get them to a place where they feel whole and they feel healthy and they have tools to go handle life. I think sometimes people get confused of, okay, if I get to this place of healing or I get to a healthy, balanced person, then I'm not going to have problems anymore. And that's not the case. I mean, Jesus says, you will have pain and I will be with you. So we're going to have time in our life where pain points come up. And when those come up, we need to know how to emotionally regulate. We need to know how to continue to live our life. We need to have skills to work through sometimes just getting out of bed. It can be that. So just getting people equipped to lean into God and to use their own skills that they've learned to help self-soothe.
That's so good.
Thank you.
So good. And I know these retreats are something that have just been your heart.
Absolutely.
Put on your heart and such.
Yes.
And I'm so excited to continue to see them grow and flourish.
Thank you.
Boundaries.
Yes.
You'd mentioned boundaries.
Sure.
Let's talk about family and boundaries and what that looks like.
Sure. So Henry Cloud and John Townsend are the experts, right, on boundaries. And what they say, which I love and makes so much sense, is if you think of a boundary as a fence with a gate that has a lock, but you can unlock the gate and you can open it and you can let the good in and keep the bad out. I think, again, it's one of those pendulum swings where maybe in the past, as Christians, we didn't have any boundaries and said yes to everything. sometimes we've gone to the opposite end, even in our own family, where we have a brick wall and it's like, it's this way or no way. And if you can't agree with me, then I've got this brick wall and there's no longer a fence that allows some things to come in and some things out.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so when you've got this fence, like you said, and the brick wall is put up,
right?
That is, I think it's a hard heart, right?
Oh, sure.
Because then
or pride,
yeah. And that's kind of where I feel family tension starts, and maybe that person's not been communicated to because the other person has a boundary,
right?
And I want to talk this out, right?
Sure.
So how does someone approach somebody that has a boundary on them?
Right. Good. So I think if I can feel that something's going on and it's different and I don't understand what it is, just being open and curious about what it is instead of offended and defensive. So going to that person and just saying, hey, I'm curious about something. I've noticed that you're not returning my text. Or we used to get together once a week and now haven't seen you in 2 months. But just some sort of curiosity and awareness. And the biggest thing, Michelle, I think, when you ask that question, you have to be ready to hear the answer. Because a lot of times I have this value or this expectation that I want this to be the answer. And if I'm opening that up in curiosity and I've created a safe place for a conversation and that person feels safe and gives the true answer, if my automatic response or reaction is defensive or I feel offended and then I start justifying why what they're saying is not true, that boundary can become a wall. And so even, if you think about if we were in the car, if we were to go shopping after this, and you drive and I'm in the passenger seat and we get to where we're going and the store clerk says, oh, what'd you see on the way? And I say, I saw Old Hickory Lake and this beautiful home. And you're like, no, that wasn't there. I saw a church and a barbecue restaurant and neither one of us are lying. We were in different seats, literally. I was looking out this window and you were looking out that window. And we saw and perceived different things, but we're both telling the truth. So if I can listen to that person's answer after I've asked the question, my job is to listen to what their pain point is and their wounding instead of the problem. And have compassion for that person where they're coming from, and listen to what they're saying and understand that you don't have to agree with their perception, but realize that it is their perception. And so meeting them at that place is really, really important. And if I know what I'm going to say while they're still talking, I'm not listening to what they're saying. So I should not know how I'm going to respond until they've told me their whole story.
Yeah. And I can be guilty of that. I think a lot of us can be guilty of that because we have in our head, especially if we are doers and we are Enneagram 3, right? We're just constantly producing things or we want certain things a certain way. So in our head, we're, well, you need to do it this way.
Right.
Well, you need to do it that way. What about this? And so, it is true. I know I can be guilty of that.
It's never, ever a child's fault that they are abused. Excuse me. But thinking about, so there are different ways we can numb out, right? There are some people that will do things to anesthetize. They will use alcohol, shopping, drugs, sex, all kinds of things to numb out. There's another group of people that will do things that are positive and actually get rewarded. Like, oh, they're the volunteer of the year. They're the employee of the year. They sign up for everything at church. And on that end, sometimes those people need to be taught boundaries and to only say yes to certain things, and they don't have to prove through performance either. And then there's some people that just, God does a healing. I mean, there's this can be with cancer or anything, that like he lays it. And why does some people get healing through that way? And then some people through counseling or medication or retreats or intensives. I don't know, but God uses all kinds of things to help us to get to that place.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we have to really encourage this next generation to, because of TikTok, because of any social media access, the instant answers.
Right.
Of this is the problem you have, here's the solution. But sometimes they're not even offering solutions. They just want people to see them as a problem.
Right.
Right.
Sure.
And so you look at this next generation coming up and you want them to see maybe what our generation saw was the healings, was the restorations, was the breakthroughs that honestly I don't see a lot of people talking about.
Right.
And where do you find maybe in the church?
Right.
Let's talk about that. In
Sure.
the church that maybe they're missing some marks and they're hitting some marks.
Sure. Well, the exciting thing to me is the church is a way different place with mental health than we used to be. I'm super grateful for that. Just even personally, my church offers 10 sessions. They help people pay for 10 sessions when they're going through something.
Wow.
Which is such a blessing.
That is, absolutely.
I mean, I remember a time where if you went to your pastor, they would just say, well, let's pray about it. And then that would be it. And there was no further anything. So we have a long way to go, but we've come such a long way, and I'm very thankful for that. I mean, there are now, from the pulpit, pastors talking about mental health for a whole sermon. There are support groups at tons of churches. Lots of churches offer their space for free for Celebrate Recovery, which is a wonderful 12-step program. It's just focused on Jesus instead of your higher power can be anything. So having those support groups, having retreats, marriage retreats, all those sorts of things are really huge. And when a lot of churches have pastoral counselors, and I think we're doing a really good job now of when someone goes to them, if it's more than they can handle, they have a list of good resources that they can refer out. Doesn't seem that they feel ashamed or like, oh, I don't know what to do, but I'm going to try to fake it. You know, they're like, oh, wow, this is outside of my scope. Let me give you the name of this place. It's a Christian counseling center, or this person that I know that's a Christian counselor. So that's a great thing that's going on in our church now.
Yeah, I feel like pastors are finally understanding or getting to a place of, I'm probably not the best source to figure out your situation.
Sure.
But I know somebody that can help you walk this out. And I think the more pastors that are willing to identify that and to just say, you know what, I'm not good in this situation. I'm not good to give you these answers because I don't have the knowledge that I know you need.
Sure.
And let's find you the source and the resource that does. It doesn't give them to a place of they're going to always point them to Christ.
Right.
They're always going to show them that God loves them no matter what.
Absolutely.
And that's what we do every Sunday, right? We go to those sermons, we see those messages, and we pray as pastors, as leaders. We want that message to be heard.
Absolutely.
But I think it's one of those where I feel like the church is, like you said, finally grabbing a hold of mental health, having these hard conversations. If someone was to come to you and say, explain to me what it is that you do.
Sure.
How would you do that?
Well, I usually just tell them my goal is to help people to be the healthiest, balanced person that they can be. And to do that, you have to get back to who you're created to be. Who did God make you and what your purpose is? And, it's helpful for people that aren't believers as well. I mean, I can still help them to be healthy, balanced, and get back to who they were created to be, even if they don't have that connection with Him, because He still made them.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So if somebody in a situation that comes to you, right, you are a licensed therapist.
Yes.
Explain to us what it is that you have, your certifications.
Okay. I have a master's in human development counseling from Vanderbilt University. And I'm a licensed professional counselor with a mental health service provider designation. So that designation allows me to see people that have mental health diagnosis as well as people that are worried well. And then I'm a instructor for the Murray Method, which there's only 4 instructors in the United States for level 2, which I am.
So explain to me, how did you get this desire to help people? To give them solutions or, resources and such.
Okay, this may be a longer answer.
No, absolutely. Go.
So when I was in 9th grade, I took a class, home economics, and every student was assigned a different career. And it was everything from a maintenance worker to president of the United States, fashion designer. There was just tons of different careers. And we literally drew a piece of paper that said what our assignment was. We were to do 2 paragraphs and then come back and tell the class about what we learned. And so mine was psychologist, and this is way before we had internet and all of that. So we're in the card catalog at the library looking up things. And I just got super excited, and I kept reading and getting more books and writing more. And I ended up turning in 2 pages instead of 2 paragraphs. What she says is, it was like I was this person who God created me to be. And then I had all this pain that came in, and I didn't want to feel the pain. So I started doing things to push the pain down. But the more I pushed the pain down, I also pushed down who I was created to be. And in that, I started trying to be more and more perfect but I couldn't be perfect enough. And then I started getting frustrated and irritable. And so she talked about what she wanted was to get back to who she was created to be. So she's in her 40s at this point, owns this very successful art gallery, but everybody in treatment's like, me too, me too, me too. And so the counselors are so surprised, and they're like, we've never seen people relate so much. You should be a counselor. Just like, I don't want to be a counselor. I'm an art dealer. And so she kind of blows them off, but she continues to talk about what's happened with her, and people keep relating. She ends up deciding to be a counselor. She sold her art gallery to her daughter and son-in-law. And that's how the Murray method came about. So she did not do this until her 40s. Mm-hmm. And so we all have who God created us to be. It's like that original child. Yeah. And we all have pain that comes in, and that pain pushes down who we were created to be. And we don't want to feel the pain, so we do different things. We either repress it, we deflect it, or we anesthetize and numb it. And so when we do that, again, who we were created to be is pushed down even more. And so then we're living out of this life that we're not created to be. And we get angry and upset. And so we get angry and rebellious, or stubborn and selfish. And so the Murray method helps us get back to that original child and who was I created to be, and start living out of that. And we can do that with not ignoring or pushing down or numbing out or deflecting that pain, but walking through it. Mm-hmm. And our pain is where we get compassion and empathy for other people. So we take who we were created to be, that compassion and empathy, and then that part that wants to push it all down, actually that piece is like controlling, but that's where we get accountability and responsibility. Mm-hmm. We pay our traffic tickets, we show up at work, we set our alarms and get up, we do things. So we add all this together to be a healthy, balanced adult, and we get rid of that angry, rebellious, and stubborn, selfish. That doesn't say we don't ever feel angry.
Right.
We just handle it in a way that's healthy.
Right.
So the Murray method just walks people through that structured system to get back to living who God made us to be.
And that's the end goal.
That's the end goal.
I mean, if we could get people to get to that place of just realizing who you are in Christ.
Absolutely.
And what God can do in you and through you.
Yes.
I think a lot of these problems would go away.
That's right.
Right? A lot of these labels would go away because we have a confidence in Christ that we can go through any circumstance, any situation.
That's right.
Because we know God is on our side, and that he goes before us, and that he is for us and not against us. All the things, and it's not easy.
Right.
Life is hard.
Absolutely.
But he also tells us that we live in this world, we're just not of it. Right. And so we are going to have cancer diagnosis. We are going to have struggles. We're going to have marriage. We're going to all the difficulties, but who do we go to?
That's right.
As a source? And I think one of the things like I love about this Murray method is the fact that you are saying, okay, we want people to see who they are in Christ. I mean, they may not see it, but that is the end goal.
That's right.
Is to kind of flush out, to weed out all the things that they believe about themselves and become the tree that was planted.
That's right.
On the living water, right? And so if we can get to that place of just giving people a resource, saying, look, sometimes we can read our Bibles and it just doesn't hit the same sometimes,
That's right?
Days are just full, they're hard, and it seems like you're getting attacked left and right. And you need somebody to just come in and just say, let's take a look at what's going on here.
Absolutely.
Right? And have a conversation.
That's right.
So, listen, you're not building muscle memory for Instagram. You're building spiritual muscle memory for impact. Keep the discipline when no one's watching. Speak with authority before the mic is in your hand. Write the book before it's already on the shelves. Live like the audience is already showing up. Whoever can be trusted with very little can be trusted with very much. Steward well with what God gives you. I think we strive so much for perfection, when in all reality, we should be doing things in excellence. God calls us to excellence. And that's what we need to do, is steward the things that he's given to us well, with excellence. So here's the transformation. Here's the takeaways. Here's what I want you to do is start training like the table's already set. So number one, identify the table. Identify the table. Define the assignment that you have been asked to do. What kind of table do you believe God is setting for you? What dream or calling or breakthrough do you keep circling around? So, for example, is it a business? Is it a book? Is it a leadership role? Is it a podcast? What is the opportunity that you keep praying for? Because see, you can't train for what you haven't named. Clarity gives your preparation direction. I love what Habakkuk 2:2 says. It says, write the vision down, make it plain, and then run with it. I want you to run with it, but you've got to write the vision down. Number two, audit your readiness. Evaluate who you need to become to sit at that table. And sometimes this is the hardest part, and it could be the longest part, because you have to begin to look at what spiritual disciplines or habits or skills do I need to strengthen. Iron sharpening iron. Find that person possibly. But what would prepare me to get there? What would it look like? And where am I still casually really making just a very small commitment to? Where do I need to make a bigger commitment to? If that table requires boldness, am I shrinking in small rooms? Who am I hanging around with? Am I hanging around people that are going to help me pursue the things that I feel called to do? If the table requires consistency, am I ghosting my own growth? Listen, you don't become her at the table. You become her in training before you get a seat at the table. Number three, build in private like it's already public. I mean, think about that. Create now like the mic is already on, like the business is already built. What can you build behind the scenes? What reps can you do in obscurity that will sustain you in visibility? Those are the questions. Record the podcast intro. I don't know, write the book outline. But just start. Pitch the speaking idea. Study the word. Train your voice. Tighten your message. It's all the things. I think about Jesus when he was preparing in the unseen moments. He was stewarding well what God gave him, that when his time was to come, he knew exactly what to do because he knew his purpose. Obedience and faith is motion. And that will train you now for that moment that's coming. So this week, I want you to take one preparation step toward your table, not because it's guaranteed, but because you're becoming the woman who's ready either way. I think it's going to be incredible for a lot of women and a lot of young women out there.
Good. I believe it.
Yes. So here's what I want to talk to you about and really ask you this question. You wrote this beautiful memoir called Hungry. Mm-hmm. And you basically, it was about your recovery from your eating disorder. Mm-hmm. What I want to know is, who was the Caroline Bridges before you penned Hungry? Who were you in the part where you didn't know that you were actually going to have an eating disorder? What got you to that place? Tell us about that.
Okay, so we're going to go back. So I was in the oldest in my family, only girl. 2 younger brothers. Great family. I had an idyllic childhood. I really did. But I was someone looking up, always looking forward, like your title of your podcast. Yeah. I was a doer. I was a go-getter. I was ready to take the world by storm. And I think that's all good stuff, right?
Right.
But going into my senior year, I had such high expectations for myself and what I wanted to do. I was a good student. I was involved in everything in school. I was a cheerleader. I was a singer. I was an actress. I just wanted to literally be everything to everybody.
Yeah.
which is kind of hard to do.
Right.
And so I was looking into my senior year like, oh my gosh, here we go. I've got to pick a college. It's got to be the best. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And I was swallowed up by uncertainty and fear. Even though I felt really confident about it, I think the potential of what was in front of me kind of just ate me up. And I found solace in something to calm my heart, which was restricting and stopped eating. And it was really, it's so weird that that is an innate thing that happens to 30 million people in the United States. I mean, that, eating disorders affect 9% of the population.
Wow. Wow. Tell us more.
Well, yeah, I mean, when I ended up going into recovery, the hospital doing my thing in recovery, they said, you are the perfect anorexic, and I thought, oh, awesome. I love that because we're perfectionists. But, my dad was a doctor. I kind of like women in my family just were supposed to look a certain way, and that's not terrible, just
right.
a lot of pretty people, and everyone did the right thing. Everyone was pretty high achieving. And because I tell you what, it takes a lot of discipline to be anorexic. It takes a lot of discipline to have that eating disorder.
Right.
And so I had the skill set,
Yeah.
to thrive in that way.
Wow. Take me to the place where, for me, it was opposite. Eating, it was the stress. I'm a stress eater.
Uh-huh.
And so to be able to refuse food was I mean, that's not difficult for me. I'll take everything you give me, right? When I'm a stress eater.
Yeah, a lot of people are like that. Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying. It's the pressure, right? The pressure to be a certain way, to look a certain way. And so I think that's kind of where you were at when you were walking this out to a place. How difficult was it? Where was it? How deep did you get into this eating disorder?
Well, that's a good question. I'm thankful no one really asks me this anymore. People used to be like, okay, what'd you weigh? Which was not a great question, but because I weighed a lot less than I do now. Eating disorders are contagious, but you know what else is? Not having an eating disorder is very contagious. And it's so cool. I love being with people that eat what they want. They feel good about themselves. You feel better when you're hanging around people like that. And when I'm talking to these college girls, I'm like, you can be the change. You really can be someone that, like my friend Sarah, she was the one that I could say, okay, I want to hang out with you, and will you help me kind of be more like you? Guys, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from girls in colleges saying, I didn't realize how important I was. How my mindset, the way I look at life and my body or myself affects other people.
Yes.
So that's been powerful.
That is very powerful because it's a message that, especially for yourself, you've been there, done that, and they see the fruit of it. And I find a lot of young people, they want to glean. They want to glean from the wise woman, if you will, that's been there and done that. And I think now is the time to get the message out and just say, don't make the same mistakes I did.
Right.
You have told us so much about who you were, Caroline Bridges, a little bit of Caroline Bridges Cook.
Yeah.
But who are you today?
Okay. So I am 50 and fabulous. I turned 50 this past summer, which just cracks me up. Yes. I've been married to Wes Cook, who's awesome and just a spitfire for I think it'll be 27 years this. Is that right? Yeah. 27 years this May. And I think I told you before, I am really excited about staying married. I chaired this really big thing in Nashville 2 years ago, and I was really busy. And at the end of that, I thought, you know what? I want to stay married like that. And people said, oh, that's so cute. I said, no. I really do. Like, that is a goal of mine.
Right.
My parents are not married anymore. And so I have seen up close and personal divorce. And it's hard. It's really, really hard.
And I think especially in our age, because it feels like you've got, what are they calling that right now? But
silver
divorce,
silver levers or something. I don't know.
And,
Yeah.
and-
I listen, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. But so back to your question though, I am 50 and fabulous. I am married to a really cute guy and I really like him and I really want to stay married. And then I have these 4 kids. I'm doing adulting. We're adulting. So I've got 25, 23, 20, and then my cute little 16-year-old. So I'm a mom of 4. I am very active in the community. I teach Bible study to a lot of awesome girls. I am on the board of the Next Door. I talked about Next Door Recovery. I love this place. It's the best. My mom and I teach art class over there. I'm growing. I want to write some more. I loved writing. Mom and I wrote some children's books, put those out in hardback this year. I'm speaking. I guess I feel like, Michelle, I don't know. We don't know how long we have. We don't know how long we have here. I lost a really my mentor. She died a few years ago. She was the most vibrant, alive person I knew. And she died of cancer quickly. So that really changed all of the people in our group of friends, our perspective of just don't take it for granted how long you have.
Yeah.
So I just want to love and I want to live and I want to speak up on things that are important and show people that God is good and life is not all about this. It's just not. We're not home.
No.
We're not home. But also, I have fun too. I love friends. I play tennis. That's really fun. I love being with my family. I feel like I've got stuff to do. Pregnancy was so awesome for me. It was such a cool way to see my body as more than something that you just look at, or feel like, are you a size 2 or a size 4? All of a sudden I had this baby inside my stomach and I just thought, okay, I'm a walking miracle. I love this. I would have had 10 kids if I could. I loved being pregnant. So that was actually a really beautiful part of my recovery.
That is beautiful. And here's the thing that I really am resonating with is the fact that you understood who your source was. You understood who to go to in the hardest moment of your life, that you didn't want to go back there. And I think that's one thing addicts struggle with, is the fact of it gives them satisfaction. It gives them a feeling of doing something that maybe is their success, but yet, again, like we're hiding these things, but yet you walk in and you go, I know this feeling and I don't like this feeling.
Yeah.
I feel this darkness.
Yeah.
And now there's a mind switch. Right? There's a switch, not just from the mind, but from the heart to say, God, I need you in this moment, right? I need you in this moment. And so binding the devil up, throwing him and, casting him out and just saying, go where you don't belong here anymore, devil.
Yeah.
That's the things that I think are just so poignant, especially for someone that struggles with addiction.
Yeah.
Somebody that can actually understand who their source is, who they can get recovery from. That makes sense?
Yes. Darkness loves addiction.
Yes.
Because it's an idol. It's an idol. There's a chapter in my book called Who's on Your Throne? And there was a sermon that I heard, Scotty Smith, who is a really well-known pastor. He was the pastor of Christ Community for years. And, because I knew the Lord. I knew the Lord well. And this was kind of a secret sin. You don't have to be sleeping around and getting drunk every night to be doing something
I think with secret sins, don't we limit ourselves? Maybe this is the top 3.
Yeah.
Right? Like you said, but there's.
Yeah. I actually would say that within the Christian community at my college, the eating disorder was rampant because guess what? It looked great. We looked like we had it all together. So I was at church one day. This was my freshman year, and sweet Scotty Smith, and I've told him this story. The sermon was, "Who's on your throne?" Everyone's got one. Everyone who's alive and has a heartbeat has a throne. What is it? Money? Is it success? Is it popularity? And I remember thinking, "Oh my gosh, it's the scale. That stupid scale is on my throne, and I don't want it on there, but it is, because I bowed down to it 10, 15 times a day. I was obsessed with that. I mean, that makes no sense to weigh yourself 10 times a day, but that scale told me my worth. Okay. And so I just remember thinking, I got to be honest with myself. Because I loved him. I loved God. I was learning so much. I was getting into RUF then, and I was learning so much about the Bible. And I thought, Lord, I don't know what to do, because I really want you in the throne, but I don't know how to get this one out. So that was a powerful moment for me. I really think that here's the ultimate story, Michelle, is that God just wouldn't let me go. He just kept going after, like runaway bunny. I kept going, and he kept coming, and he just wouldn't let me live in that.
And that's the Bible, right?
Yeah,
I know. He leaves the 99 for the one.
Yeah, he did.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. We talked about going through this and having the right support system around you. And we talked about some qualities, maybe some characteristics. What is for someone that may be navigating an eating disorder or addiction in itself? What does the support system look like? And what are the qualities and the characteristics you think need to aspire to be in that support system?
I'm thinking about this friend right now who, she knows she was this person. I mean, I think your question, what does a support system look like? I want to talk about that, but I also want to talk about what it doesn't look like. Because I still work in this space with a lot of women with addiction and from drugs and alcohol.
Yeah. Almost any decision is better than no decision at all. My friends, just making one decision is better than making no decision at all. Because even if you choose a path that ultimately isn't right, you'll discover that faster through actually taking the steps, acting them out, than just overthinking and doing nothing with them. See, once you start implementing this bold decision method, something remarkable happens. You break the cycle of overthinking that has kept you stuck for so long. You break the cycle when you begin looking for the next move from where you are now. That's the secret to overcoming overthinking. You can't see the entire path from where you're standing. Some routes only become visible once you're in motion. I think about Ruth. Think about Ruth in the Bible. When she decided to follow Naomi to a foreign land, she couldn't possibly know she would become the great grandmother of King David and be in the lineage of Jesus Christ. She simply made a bold decision to go where her heart led her, and God worked out the details, so she couldn't even foresee what was going to happen. But she just trusted. And I find that the answers I've been overthinking about for weeks often appear within the minutes of me just taking action, me taking that bold step. The conversations I might have dreaded having bringing immediate healing. Maybe the boundary I was afraid to set actually strengthened the relationship. And here's what's truly liberating. When you embrace action over endless analyzing, failure loses its power over you. Oh, because failure isn't a destination. It's not a destination, my friends. All it is feedback. What to do different, what to change, what to tweak. It's data that informs your next step. When overthinking shows up now, and it still does for me, I recognize it as a signpost, as a yield sign, if you will. It's not telling me to stop and analyze more. It's telling me, hey, there's something important that's coming along the way on this other side of this decision that fear doesn't want me to discover. And I'm going to yield to it and watch it unfold. Your moments of greatness, hesitation, are often doorways to your greatest breakthroughs. So here's what I want you to take away from our time together today. Listen, overthinking isn't a personality trait. It's a habit. And like any habit, it is to be broken with consistent intentional practice. I want you to start with one decision you've been avoiding. Maybe it's a conversation you need to have with your teenager. Maybe it's whether to go back to work or back to school. Maybe it's finally addressing that health concern you've been ignoring. If you apply this method today, I promise, and you give it 30 minutes a day, you write it all out and you ask your heart what it knows to be true. Then take one bold step. Take one action within that 24 hours that moves you forward. Listen, I know this works because here I am sitting right here recording for this podcast, no longer overthinking through all the questions. Listen, if something in this conversation resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. I want you to drop a comment below telling me one decision that you're going to make using this method this week. Listen, I read every comment and would be honored, hear from my heart. I'd be honored to cheer you on. This is why next week we're going to dive into how facing your fears head on instead of letting them dictate your decisions, because you're not just capable of great things, my friends, you're called to them. You're not one more strategy away from success. You're one bold decision away. And you know what? When you have a confidence in Christ, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. That's the bold decision. And it starts now. The path becomes clear not when you think more, but when you boldly choose the direction, when you boldly walk in a confidence that Christ has given you. Until next time, my friends, I'm in your corner, cheering you loudly with every brave step you take. Now go make that decision you've been putting off.
But she's more, why do you say that? What are your limiting beliefs about money? Or why do you think you can't make this much money? Or why do you think no one will want to buy your course? Or whatever those mental blocks are. But you don't even know you have them until you have someone to explore them with you
Yeah.
who says, hey, wait, is that really true?
That's true.
You know, or, oh, that seems like a wall. It seems like you didn't want to record that mini course on Friday, which might have been my really experience. And maybe the microphone didn't work. And maybe I couldn't remember how to put it into Thrivecart anymore. And I just wanted to just get mad. And I just wanted to walk away from it. And then I don't know what happened. I think I just evaluated, oh, look at all these excuses I'm making for myself today. Okay, you've got an option. You can walk away from this and come back tomorrow, which is Saturday, when you didn't really feel like getting dressed and recording a course because it's on like a camera. Or you can just maybe try one more time. And you know what? I tried one more time. Would I have tried one more time without mindset coach work? I don't know. Maybe not.
Wow.
You know, and now it's done. And now it's published. And now it's out there. And I'm excited. It's called Success Without Social, because I think when you look at me and you see this girl who has like less than 2,000 followers on Instagram, you go, what is her business like? She probably works like 5 times a year. So you can, you know, social media has not been that kind to me for my business.
Yeah.
It's a great portfolio and it's a great way to connect with my clients. But all the clients that review my stories are mostly my own. They're existing clients. So I have now shared, well, here's what does work.
Yeah.
And maybe this doesn't work for, you know, if social media doesn't work for you, maybe this is the answer as well.
And I think what I've learned the most, you said something there about the numbers, is what I've learned the most is that when I speak, right? So if I'm in an audience of 200 people, it's the same people that I would have 200 people on Instagram. And am I speaking to the 200 people in everything that I've got, all my energy, all the hard work, and be able to see the fruit in that it's given me thought to go, you know what? I have the X amount of people, whether I have 1 million people or whether I have 1,000 people, it doesn't matter. I get to the opportunity to speak into that person, to give photographs, all the things, and teach. So never discount your numbers. Right.
Okay.
So here's what I want to end on.
Okay.
And I think people have seen why I love you is because you're a business owner, but you have life. You have children that have some ebbs and flows. You have a marriage that you're saying, you know, is hard right now. But what I want you to do is I want you to leave us with some encouragement today to that person that is probably in this, maybe the same situation you are. Maybe they're a business owner and life is just hard and they're trying to balance both of them. They know that financially they've got to bring in some income, but they've also got all this stuff. But will you speak to that person right now?
Of course. There's a couple things that come to mind. So one is you're never going to do all the things well. And I feel like the sooner you learn that, the more grace you can give yourself. On the weeks that I am fully charged and tearing it up, this week would be an example. In photography, the laundry might not be getting done. And somebody might say, man, Mom, you're not home very much this week. I was kind of hoping we were going to have this for dinner. Yeah, well, maybe we're not. Maybe next week, maybe Saturday. You know, I think every time I'm doing great in one area, oh, I might be just not doing so great on the other side. And it's a balance. And as long as I'm not continuing to focus in one direction, it all works out over the, when you go to the 30,000 foot view, right? So as long as you're not looking at the day to day, my kids are happy, and my kids know that I do want to provide them with their favorite snacks, and I do want to take them to see their potential girlfriend for a hangout, which involves my presence and her present, her mom's presence.
I love it.
Right? All those things. I do want him to have a relationship, but maybe we can't do that every single week. The moms both work, things like that. Someone told me a long time ago that you're asking your client as a photographer to be vulnerable, right? They're bringing their insecurities and their 20 extra pounds and their scars, and they're all things there, right? And your personal insecurities about your nose rises too much and you don't like your profile. That might be me. Things like that. You're bringing that to a photographer and saying, here I am in all my ugly, please make me as beautiful as you can and genuine as you can. And I've always felt that if I was shallow and a shell, why would you give me that? Why would you be willing to be vulnerable in that moment with me if I'm this put together, freshly showered, probably got all my ducks in a row in a beautiful lawn, manicured? None of those things are true. So I bring a little bit of me. I mean, we sit down for a minute, especially like a headshot. We sit down and we talk about, well, what was your best headshot? Show me one you don't like. Show me one you love. Like, give me some direction of what you like, because I can take whatever I want to take. But if you don't love it, what did we do here? And so I probably share too much. Probably not everybody's bag. But the connections that I make with my clients are genuine and real and lifelong. And I have always had the tagline on Instagram forever, and we'll probably become friends. Because once we've shared that moment and we've put our ugly on the table, then we can embrace that, right? And we can move forward.
That's so good. So good. Okay, business. And I know you have, just listening to you and all the things that you are doing, how do you find your productivity to be efficient? What do you do that you can say, I need this, this, and this to make me productive today?
I need coffee. I hate to admit that. I've got a nice coffee. And I need a shower by myself. I don't know why, but more things come together in the car and in the shower. So I need that quiet, not talking time for the things to bubble up to the top. I am a list maker because I have a very bad memory, always have. Like remembering in high school, no cramming because I can't remember it the next day. So I rely on lists. They're not pretty. I have a notebook of active things and I just scratch through them. And if it gets too ugly, I switch the page.
Yeah.
Because as a parent, you are pulled in so many directions. I've got one online school. I've got one who has a schedule of his own making of medicine and lunch and medicine and the things.
Yeah.
And all of those things have to work in alignment, and they don't always.
Yeah.
But they need to.
Yeah.
So I have a very flexible work schedule. I'm grateful for that. I haven't had to ask for a day off in 16 years. I don't ever want to ask for a day off. I want to be able to take 4 hours and go do this thing. And if I work 4 hours at night, I work 4 hours at night. Do I work 10 hours a day on my work? Especially, I've put this together. It's a pretty well-oiled machine, editing wise, marketing wise. I feel like I've put the work in for that, but I probably work less than I ever did on my feet on the ground photography, which I still do on the daily. But the flexibility of, I'm going to go and do dentist appointment and doctor's appointment and shoe shopping or whatever the thing is that the kids need. And I'm going to work past dinner. That's the beauty, right? Of making it run smoothly.
Yeah. Now you talked to me about a support system that you have, and you kind of lean on to that. Just explain that a little bit and tell me a little bit, unpack that for me.
Okay. So I am a self-taught photographer. I don't know. I used to be embarrassed by it. There was a phrasing called momtographer, and I really repelled that. I was like, no, I do have a college degree. It is not in photography. I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't even know I wanted to be a photographer when I was in college. I really wanted to be a mom. Let's be honest. So I was in the sales industry in employee benefits for years, and then got married, had babies, left that world. I was a stay-at-home mom. Then I was an autism mom, which is a whole job into itself, and then had another child. And then when that little one was just yummy and sweet, and it was my last, I knew 2 was it, and it was my last one, and I wanted to capture every moment, and digital cameras had come out, and I was taking pictures. And I had a friend who was a photographer, and she came over and she showed me where the light was in my house, because my house, I felt like, was a cave. And she's like, just move your kitchen table and put your baby right here. And I went, you can do that?
Yeah.
And took this picture that I have hanging in my house. That is the moment where I said, maybe I could do this. I think we're in a land of Instagram and perfection and reels and a curated moment. And I think, if nothing else, I bring the raw, live, real story of it's hard and it's messy, and you can have failures and successes. You can still grow, but navigating as an independent business person with a family, in my story with kids who have special needs, it is a challenge. It's a challenge every day, but there's growth and there's grace. And I think the bar, I probably put the most pressure on myself. I'm very competitive with myself. Every year I want my numbers to be better. I don't know what that number would ever be that would make me happy, but always I'm striving for that. And the balance, though, I think as my kids have gotten older, the balance also of being present and having the life I want to have, and work to live, not work to live, right? Live to work. No, whatever the phrase is, that's right. I don't want to do the wrong one. Yeah. Right. So I want to work so I can live, not live so I can work. That's right. Yes.
That's so good. Okay. So you've been in business for 16 years. You have your family. You've raised a child with autism, correct? And you shared with me some financial ups and downs. Like I shared with you, we own a roofing construction business. And so recessions hit and things happen where financially you've got to take a pivot, take a turn. Where have you found in those moments your joy? Where have you found that capacity where you can take on these challenges?
I will admit that I am an Enneagram 2 with a 3 wing. So I really, truly in my heart, love service. I love to give people something that they need. And that is why my specific industry of being a family photographer and a headshot photographer fills that bucket in so many ways for me. I am able to give you a moment that you're going to have forever when your kids are 15 and you go back to that 3-year-old and you just want to eat them because they're gorgeous and they're beautiful and they're easy and they don't drive and they don't stay out late and all the things that big kids do. So I'm able to give those gifts, and that, I am so charged after a great session that sometimes I can't sleep. Like it is so exciting and happy for me to know I'm giving this gift, and that sounds so cheesy. And in headshots, I work with a lot of people who are not young, right? So as I tell everybody, it is the oldest day you've ever lived. Be kind to yourself, right? Today is the oldest you've ever been. And you're now going to evaluate your pictures, and you're going to see your 20-year-old self is not in that 50-year-old face, but there's beauty in your uniqueness. And the thing that drives you crazy, like the little bit of a tooth that sticks out a little bit on my frame of teeth, that little tooth that bothers me so much and I want to pose a certain way, is also what's so endearing to my friends. So while you don't love, I'm speaking to me, the furrowed brow that doesn't have Botox, other friends just know that that's my face. And when I'm happiest, that's all showing. So I try to bring that to other people. And so in the hard times, I remember I'm still doing this. And one of the ways that I've perpetuated that for myself and for my business is through a giving back program. I started out, if you'll allow me to jump into that.
Absolutely.
I started out, so my mom, so I'm adopted. This is a little part of my story. My parents had infertility issues. My mom lost a couple babies, never got to meet them. Back in the 60s, you had your babies, and they said, I'm so sorry. They were early, and they weren't able to be saved. That was a part of our family story. We would go to their gravesite when we were kids. It was interesting.
Wow.
But it was part of her story, right? So I always knew that there's sadness and loss in pregnancy. It's not always the picture everybody when you're 20 thinks it is. So when an opportunity came for me to work with an organization called Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep, which does bereavement photography, so basically photography services for babies who don't get to go home, I was all in because it was a gift that I could give forward for my mom, right? Because my mom came and she was so touched by it. And it was a really beautiful and difficult thing to do. But the timing is terrible because you get a phone call at 9:00 at night and they say, can you come to Vanderbilt?
Wow.
You know, we've got a mom and in the next 2 hours, we're going to need you. It's 6:30 p.m. Can you be here by 8? I had little kids. It was very difficult and the editing is hard. And my computer at the time was in our den so I could spend time with our little ones. And it was just challenging.
Clarity doesn't come from endless thinking. It comes from deciding. It comes from just stepping out and deciding in faith that this is where we're going. This is what I'm doing. This is the calling that God's put in my life. This is the pursuit that I feel passionate about. Look, and sometimes even the story that I opened up with, yes, the Holy Spirit came down in that car and so clearly had spoken in my spirit those words of coming. But did I come knowing that we were going to hit head on into the recession of 2007 and 2008? No. And if I knew that, do you think we probably would have done this? Probably not. Because I can't tell you how much faith and how much strength it took to get through it. But I would have never changed it because it is who I am today. And it's a strong company. It's a strong marriage. It's all the things, right? And I'm so proud. I'm so proud. But even through the hard, we learned so much. And this is why I'm so hesitant about coaching and new people coming in with coaching, because honestly, how? They haven't even gone through any of the hard stuff. You've got to get through the hard stuff and then let's have a conversation. Listen, our fear of failing isn't really about failure at all. It's about who sees us failing. Who's going to see us if we fail? Our family, our friends, our coworkers, our church? I think I know we delay launching even just a project. Not because we're afraid it wouldn't work, but because we're afraid of what people will think if it didn't. Man, failure is hard, but when we pick ourselves up and we keep going and we learn from our failures, I promise you, it makes you better the next time and the next time and the next time. But what the least thing you have to worry about is what people will think while you are in that struggle bus. When you're in that struggle bus of deciding, of failing, of not sure, because you will be hesitant, you will stay stagnant. But let me tell you something powerful. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is choosing your purpose over your pride, over your perfection. That's where you draw your courage from. And the only opinion that truly matters is the opinion of the one who actually gave you your purpose. And that's God. See, here's some truth that took me far too long to learn. You're never fully ready, my friends, but you're always going to be ready enough. Think about it. If I didn't push play on this podcast and say, let's just go, I would probably still not be so many episodes in. I wouldn't have had the guests that I've already had because I was waiting for things to be perfect instead of just allowing them to be ready enough. And I'm so glad we did. So if it aligns with your values, you're ready enough. If it moves you closer to your purpose, you're ready enough. If it stretches you without breaking you, you're ready enough. Stop making it so hard, my friends. You get better with the more reps you do. Listen, I love working out. I love going to the gym, but I also know I'm never going to get better and lift more weight if I don't practice, if I don't start, It's like me being an athlete, my whole young years through my young adult years, playing softball and then coaching my daughter's teams as they played. Listen, I know we're not going to get better unless we show up to practice. Practice makes it perfect. Practice constantly gets us moving forward. It gets us better. Do you think that I don't know that if I did season 1, season 2, all the seasons, right? But by the time I get to season 4 or even season 2, I know that I'm going to be better than season 1 was. It's the same thing for you. If you are wanting to go out there and try and do something that your heart's desire is to do, then go do it. Does it need to be perfect? No, but I promise you, you will get better as you practice along. Hebrews 12:1 says this, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. But this is the key part. And let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. Let us run. Let us run the race he has set before us. See, my friends, your next breakthrough isn't waiting on your perfection. It's just waiting on your next step. So let's take this deeper. I want you to ask yourself this right now. What decision have I delayed that's costing me peace? It's costing you peace. Trust me, I know what that feels like. The late nights, the courses, the filling out notebooks, the wondering if this is the right move. But what would it mean if you actually took the step? And what would it mean for your life, for your relationships, if you actually took action right now? You're my first guest on my podcast.
Honored. That's so special.
I mean, like, we celebrated with a piece of cake on my, just the first episode of just the launching, and I had some cake out, and I really do wish I had some leftover cake, because I feel like we need to celebrate this moment, right?
It is a big moment. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Your studio is amazing, and what a journey it's been for you.
It has. It's been a really fun journey. So I'm just so glad that you are here with us today. But before we get into the depth and deep conversations, I want you to talk to our listeners right now. And I really want you to just share with your heart where you're at in your journey, how you are so in that place of just wanting to spread the message that you have. So will you unpack your story for us today?
Yeah, I grew up with a pretty broken home situation, and I was kind of unconventionally adopted. I was technically in the foster care system, but it was my best friend's family that took me in for a couple years when I was a teenager. And so that was a really rough time. My mom ended up dying, a really tragic death when I was 16. And so I did have a lot of trauma. And I gave my life to Jesus when I was in college, and I heard a lot of pastors say from stage, talk about freedom and talk about wholeness and talk about all you need is an encounter with Jesus. You don't need to go to therapy. So I thought, well, I'm a Christian now, and I'm all free, and I should just be walking in healing and wholeness. And therapy wasn't a part of my vocabulary. It wasn't a part of the language that I spoke. I didn't grow up in a Christian home. So even these small steps of faith that we take for granted were a huge deal to me, to be able to renew my mind, to be able to think differently about myself, to be able to believe that I have value and worth, and that I'm chosen, and that I have a Father in heaven who loves me even amid my brokenness of my broken family and my broken parental situation. To know that I had a parent in heaven that loved me was massive, was huge. So as I began to walk it out, I think I grew increasingly frustrated that I wasn't making more progress like I saw other people making. But my starting line was so far behind because of all the trauma that I had been through, that I didn't realize and have language for that. And I wanted to be free in Jesus. And I saw other people free in Jesus. And I wanted that so bad. And the misconception, I think, is that, you're not praying enough. You're not working hard enough as a Christian. You're not a good enough Christian.
Yeah.
But really, I just need someone to give me permission to say, you probably should go to therapy. You probably should work on your processing your emotions instead of suppressing them. But Jesus is our source, not marriage, not motherhood, not all these things that we thought that were going to bring us a wholeness and completeness. And so I think there's a strength and empowerment that I want to offer women outside of their roles as wife, as mom, as caretaker, as taxi cab driver, as soup stirrers, whatever it is that your day-to-day looks like. Outside of all of that, there's a strength and an empowerment that I feel like is going to be translated.
Yes.
Like I'm learning how to find my voice. I'm learning how to teach the principles. I'm learning how to sometimes it's like you've walked through something, but how do I translate that and put it into words for somebody and then give them the steps to walk it too?
Yep.
You know? And I think that I'm in the process of that, but I know that there's a strength that I have now that I want every woman to have. I want every woman to know, no matter what her children do, no matter what her husband, no matter what her pastor did, no matter what her friend and the way that friend showed up and betrayed her, whatever other people's choices are, there's a strength and an empowerment for you, an unshakable anchor in God's strength that is available to you, that will give you the ability to walk through no matter what other people do, say, or come at you with. There's a strength there that you can walk and say, well, this is how I'm choosing to show up.
Yes. And it comes down to identity.
Yeah.
How do you identify yourself, right? Because you talked about it being a mom, being a wife, being a caretaker, all the things. But in reality, we all go through seasons. And we may season through our mothering, and then they grow up, and then we have a new season that comes ahead. But God just always reminds us that He knows us. Yeah. He's got us in the palm of His hand. He's created us. Yes. And so I think those are the things that I get excited about. I know people don't know how we met, but we met at a writers' conference. We did. And in Charlotte, right?
Yes, yes.
And we just kind of had a mutual connection, and that mutual connection said, you guys need to meet. And it's really just been a classic community of friendship, if you will, that's been built and stuff. And so we were both in a contest, and I had won the contest, and she was like, okay, but we prayed for each other, and I didn't win. But it's a matter of just, we were cheering each other on, and we're cheerleaders for each other. Yeah. And I think that's just a huge thing that I think women need, is to know that we have each other's back. Yes. And that we are cheering for each other. So as you are writing, I think you're on Substack, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But as you're writing, and I think you have a new book maybe coming out or something?
Yes, yes. So what really took me by surprise is when we got the kids, right? The completion of our family. This was a dream, like 5 years in the making, to complete our family. Moved to Florida for a great ministry opportunity, had all these prayers come true all at once, and yet it was the most disoriented I've ever felt in my life. Part of it is because I needed to go therapy. It was, but those things can trigger, right? Good changes can trigger an emotional response we weren't expecting, an emotional weight we weren't expecting. To carry out something that we prayed for in the natural can be very different than praying for it in the spiritual. And I am writing a book about that process, about how even good change is hard, and we can give ourselves permission to walk through that and process it with God. Life changes, like you said, seasons shift. Right. But God never does. And God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And He is the unchanging one that we can cling to and we can build our lives on. So that's what the book's about. It won't be out until 2026. It's a long process of editing and working with a publisher. I have a publisher now, which is exciting to say.
Wow.
So
you won the contest.
There's no contest. No contest.
I definitely gives me reason to have you back several times before the book. So I'm really awesome. Excited about that.
That would be great.
Here's what I want you to do. I want you to give one thing that you want the listener to take away today from today's conversation. What's the one thing? And I didn't give you this on the notes. Yeah. But what is the one thing that you want the listener from today's conversation to know?
Life changes, like you said, seasons shift. Right. But God never does. And God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And He is the unchanging one that we can cling to and we can build our lives on. So that's what the book's about. It won't be out until 2026. It's a long process of editing and working with a publisher. I have a publisher now, which is exciting to say.
Wow.
So
you won the contest.
There's no contest. No contest.
I definitely gives me reason to have you back several times
Yes,
before the book. So I'm
that
really,
would be
really
awesome.
excited about that.
That would be great.
Here's what I want you to do. I want you to give one thing that you want the listener to take away today from today's conversation. What's the one thing? And I didn't give you this on the notes.
Yeah.
But what is the one thing that you want the listener from today's conversation to know?
I can't help anybody out of a pit that I'm not out of myself.
Oh, so good.
And so I can't sit there and comfort them and help them regulate if I haven't processed that very same thing that I walked through with my parents or my trauma. And so to be able to dive into that and honestly, God's word and his Holy Spirit, I just don't know how people could walk it without it. And to be able to comfort them with some of those truths that even if they can't believe that I am never going to leave them, right? Even if it's hard for them to believe that because everyone's left them, to be able to say there is a God in heaven who will never leave you and never forsake you is such a powerful truth for them to grab hold of. And I know it was for me too. I can't help anybody out of a pit that I'm not out of myself.
Oh, so good.
And so I can't sit there and comfort them and help them regulate if I haven't processed that very same thing that I walked through with my parents or my trauma. And so to be able to dive into that and honestly, God's word and his Holy Spirit, I just don't know how people could walk it without it. And to be able to comfort them with some of those truths that even if they can't believe that I am never going to leave them, right? Even if it's hard for them to believe that because everyone's left them, to be able to say there is a God in heaven who will never leave you and never forsake you is such a powerful truth for them to grab hold of. And I know it was for me too. But there's this doctor who talks about trauma in a really unique way that I'd never heard about before. He said, trauma is anything that's too much, too fast, or too soon. And I think that that's so unique. And I love that description because we often confuse trauma as a traumatic event, which is something that happened that was violent or horrific, or maybe we haven't been through a traumatic event. Maybe we can look back and we say, I had a great childhood. I don't why do I have all these struggles? It doesn't mean that you don't have trauma. It doesn't mean that you didn't experience something that was too much, too fast, too soon, or that you internalized in a wrong way. And it could have been something that your mom was well-intended that she said, but you internalized it in a way that was too much, too fast, too soon, or in a way that was twisted, in a way that was you were never meant to internalize that. And so it's so important for everyone to be able to recognize those narratives that form, those lies that form. Like you said, the enemy will use those and he'll try to grow those in our lives. And so the more that we can lean in to those and face our trauma head on, so many people are afraid to face it on because they think, oh, if I start the waterworks, I'm never going to stop crying. Like it's very scary, because you know that there's something going on in there and you don't want it to be a volcano, right? But the reality is like there really is peace on the other side. And your podcast, Fearless Forward, we have to be able to face that trauma fearlessly. We have to be able to face it and know that God is going to be right there with us. And it's so powerful when you find a counselor who can integrate your faith with you and say, where was Jesus when that happened? And be able to see it completely differently when you realize God never left you, right? And that he was there all along. And that, he's bigger than our questions. He's bigger than the whys that we may never get answered. He's so much bigger and his presence is so much better. So I would just say, don't be afraid. Lean into it because there really is a peace on the other side that is better than you can imagine.
Yeah, I think, and it's so good because you walk in. I remember in my own trauma, and I had childhood trauma with my father and such, but walking in that under the rug, not allowed to talk about it, in the same home still, growing up this way. And had really walked through a divorce and things because I didn't know who I really was. I didn't know if I was loved. I didn't know all those things. And it wasn't until I had a woman come up to me and said, you know what, I want to counsel you. And she was in the church.
Wow.
And to just be able to confide and trust is a big deal for people that have dealt with trauma.
Yeah.
I think it is because you can only, you give little snippets of your heart, but you don't give your full heart away.
Yeah.
Because you have been hurt, because you don't know who you can trust. Sometimes you don't even trust yourself. And so I think those are big, big things. So I want to ask you this question. How have you navigated maintaining your own identity and healing process during the season of transition?
Well, I had to break free from codependency. And if people are not familiar with that word, it means that if someone else in your life is not happy, then you're not happy. If someone else is not okay, then you're like, you absorb. And I had to learn, even with my kids, how to observe, but not absorb. I was an absorber.
Yeah.
And I think, I know probably a lot of your listeners are wives and moms, and it's really easy to lose ourselves in motherhood and in being a wife, and without even realizing it. We realize that we've really lost a lot of the essence of just who we are as an individual because we're so wrapped. I mean, that's why they say when people, when your kids leave the nest, there's like this meltdown, this crisis of identity because our lives were so intertwined.
Let me tell you something. That will set you free. Confusion is often just fear wearing a clever disguise. When we're afraid to move forward, our brains create confusion as a way to keep us safe. See, back when I told you that I had spent $10,000 on coaching, it wasn't really that I didn't know what to do next. I was just afraid of failing again and again and again, and afraid of looking like a fool. Afraid of making the wrong decision, the wrong choice. Confusion was just the socially acceptable way for me to be okay with where I was, to stay comfortable. To be honest. Once I recognized that, I could then tell myself, I could say, it's unknown and it's scary, but I can take one small step anyway. Because I understood God has not given me a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And finally, you need to just trust. Trust that clarity deepens as you move. Faith and action work together. It's like driving at night. You in your headlights, right? The headlights only show 200 feet in front of you, but you can make the entire journey that way. It just requires obedience. I love what James chapter 2, verse 26 says in the Amplified. It says, for just as the human body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works of obedience is also dead. Obedience. So my question to you is, what's your next 200 feet? What small action feels right in your head, not just your head, but right in your spirit? Stanford University did a study that found momentum actually creates motivation, not the other way around. We think we need to feel motivated to act, but actually taking action is what creates the motivation to keep going. And so when you're feeling stuck or you're unsure, the absolute best thing you can do is take one small step at a time, one small action at a time, not to achieve some big goal, but just to create movement, just to create momentum, because clarity comes in the movement. And we live in a culture today where we are obsessed with certainty. We have to be matter of fact. We have to have it perfect before we go out and take the first step with knowing exactly, with having it all figured out. But what if the most beautiful parts of life come from embracing the uncertainty? I was hiking in Colorado a few summers ago with my husband. And we had gotten to this fork in the trail, if you will. And we had to make a decision on where to go because there was no sign indicating which way to go. So we stood there debating, looking at the map the park gave us, and finally we just picked a direction. And half a mile later, we emerged through the trees to the most breathtaking view of the mountains I've ever seen. And I remember thinking, what if we stayed at that fork because we couldn't make a decision? We would have missed this. That moment has become a spiritual download for me about clarity because it says this: sometimes you just have to pick a path and start walking. Sometimes you just have to pick a path and start walking. The view will reveal itself along the way. I think about Abraham. I think about Moses. They didn't even have a GPS map of their final destination with how long it was going to take to get there. All they had was the next step. All they were given was the next step. I've come to believe that clarity isn't a destination. It's obedience. It's something we cultivate through small choices, through listening to not just ourselves, but listening for his voice, through taking action, even when we're not even 100% sure. And here's something really important. Confusion often shows up right before a breakthrough. Oh, let me say that again. Confusion often shows up right before a breakthrough. It's actually a sign that you're on the edge of growth, that you're pushing beyond your comfort zone into new territory. When confusion shows up for me now, I don't see it as a problem. I see it as an invitation to get busy, an invitation to go deeper with God, an invitation to listen more carefully, to trust more fully. Your moments of greatest confusion are often invitations to greater knowledge of how God made you. They're opportunities to discover what truly, truly matters. I want you to hear me clearly. This confusion you're feeling, it's not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's actually a doorway to something deeper and truer in your life. Clarity doesn't come from praying harder or gathering more information. It comes from quieting down enough to hear what you already know, to hear what God has already given you, and then having the courage to take one small step forward.